Hello and welcome. As always, I'm your host, Casimir Basilius, Imperial Lord. And, well, today's Worldbuilding Wednesday, the day in which we build worlds. So that's what we're going to do. Sort of. I mean, yeah, that is what we're going to do. We are going to be world building. We're also going to be working. Probably. Maybe. Who knows? I'm not entirely sure. Because there's so much I want to do. I have been recently deep in work. Very deep in work. So much work. Specifically, random system generation. Star systems in Galactic Requiem are, of course, generated. Of course, I do handcraft many a star system. But when you take into account that there are, on rough average, 700 to 800. Well, the average, I believe, is 800 if we're being technical. I believe it's somewhere between 7 and 800. But when there's 7 to 800 star systems in any given sector, well, you see the issue of handcrafting 700 star systems. It is a process. Of course, that's per system. Here, you see, I mean, no, that's per sector, sorry. So it's 7 to 800 systems per sector. This is, of course, a sector. Now, we've been over this before, but I might as well point out the difficulty of the task. This is a sector. This is the galaxy map. So, I know that it's roughly 200,000 by 200,000 light years. I'm not sure how far that is. I know that a sector is 150 by 150 light years, but I couldn't possibly do that math easily. So let's just measure across. So we're looking at 1,500 or so sectors. by 1,500 or so sectors. So we're looking at about 2,250,000 sectors or something like that. Yeah, about 2,250,000 sectors. Each one of those with about 800 systems leaves us with 1,100,000 million. Yeah, 1.8 billion star systems. So, for my own sanity, we have a little random generator. I say random, it's custom built. So it generates systems the way I want it to. Unfortunately, I hate the way I set up my own random generator, specifically the chart list of objects and the numbers associated with how they're generated. I hate it. And so I've reworked it a bit. That has upsides and downsides. Upsides being I like it better. Downsides being it's still work in progress. And I can no longer use the random automatic generator to generate star systems, which involves hitting 2 buttons. Actually, 1 button. It involves hitting 1 button, technically 2, up arrow key and enter after typing in a phrase. So, hitting a button to generate a star system, which no longer works. I mean, it works, but it uses the old wait list for the way things are generated, while I've updated to a new wait list. Luckily, the generator still accurately generates sectors, subsectors, that is. So the placement of the objects works fine. I just have to hand generate the objects. I say hand generate, not fully custom. I mean, it's a random chart. I mean, the chart is, you get the point. It's not as easy as hitting a button anymore. Anyway, let's see. So, let's go back to the sector. East 40. Here we are back in East 40, where our solo campaign currently is taking place. We were working a bit on this sector. We're going to talk about more than just sector design, don't you worry. We're going to be doing a lot, theoretically, hypothetically, ideally. So, oh yeah, I should talk about the generator chart. Why not? No reason not to. That's actually what I intended to do. I like stating things out loud. Specifically, I've been over this before, because it helps me figure out what I'm working on when I say it out loud. Like, it helps me solve problems if I state them. I'm not sure why, but sometimes just talking helps sort out ideas, you know? And so, that's what I'll say it all, and hopefully I'll come up with ideas and all that. Anyway, so star system generation. It generates star systems. So the problem I face constantly is I've been over this before. I used to study astronomy. All about it. I used to know all about it. Still do to a degree. But, space. Unsurprisingly. I know, shockingly, I enjoy space. Crazy, right? I'm only a space empire leader, you know, crazily enough. So, space. System generation is relatively accurate. Well, and inaccurate. It's both accurate and inaccurate in places I both like and hate. For instance, M-class stars, the most common, one of the most common in the galaxy, with like a 70 to 80% rate of existing as percentage of stars, was relatively accurately represented in the random dice roll generator. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I want less M-class stars because it's not like I have a problem with M-class stars. It's just when the random generator is weighted somewhat accurately and I hit enter, 99% of the, well, 70 to 80% of the systems, which feels like 99% of the systems, are M-class stars, which gets annoying and repetitive, you know? So, so even though it's inaccurate to your Elysian astronomy, I have reduced the percentage of M-class stars for my own sanity and to reflect the galaxy of Galactic Requiem, which should have less M-class stars because we go on a different set of physics than you and I can do what I want. So, yes, that's one of the things that used to be accurate that I've made inaccurate and prefer it inaccurate because it more represents the way Galactic Requiem works. Even though it's less accurate to your Elysian astronomy, it's funner and yeah. But other numbers that are fun, I also feel need tweaking, which have been tweaked. It just is not reflected in the automatic generator. For instance, the generation rate of neutron stars, pulsars, and magnetars was, in my opinion, too high. So I've lowered the rate of neutron stars, magnetars, and pulsars. However, where would I put that extra percentage? Because, I mean, the other option is to increase or decrease other percentages and or add other things. And I added other things. So this was done a while back, but it's also not represented in the random generator. This is one of the older updates I did, which was the original random generator, unfortunately, only did main sequence stars. So instead of more neutron stars, magnetars, and pulsars, I weighted them to be less, and the spare percentage chance I had was shifted to a chart that will generate different classes of stars, theoretically, if rolled. So it'll go, you know, subdwarf, main sequence, which is not on that chart. If you roll main sequence, you roll main sequence. But the subchart is it a subdwarf, giant, supergiant, hypergiant, or subgiant, etc. And then you would get, of course, roll again. So you'd roll what kind? Is it a subdwarf, giant, subgiant, supergiant, hypergiant, etc. And the then you'd roll main sequence again to get the stellar class. So it's a O class hypergiant or a G class hypergiant, etc., etc. Basically giving more option. Stuff like that. Anyway, those are not represented statistically accurately as the main sequence systems were, but it's not really, we're not here for accuracy. We're here for accuracy to the Galactic Requiem law. So, you know, which is somewhat accurate, but certain things, as somebody who studied astronomy, annoy me. Certain things, which are annoy me due to inaccuracy, but also annoy me due to accuracy. See, I have a certain view, a vision, if you will, and my goal is to match that vision. For instance, in the old system, annoyingly, any object could have a million moons. Well, not a million moons. If you want to be technical, the old maximum, which was ridiculous, and just to a point in which I did not like it. It wasn't, this is, mind you, this is statistically unlikely. This is statistically unlikely to actually achieve this, but it was theoretically possible for a object, and by object I mean like a planet, to have about 48 moons. It was statistically unlikely, but theoretically possible to roll 6 orbital slots and then to roll 8 on a d8 all 6 times to end up with 48 moons orbiting a like Mercury-sized planet, which, I mean, not ideal. Statistically unlikely that you would achieve this result given the way it was weighted, but possible to achieve this result. But I mean, it did achieve results that I did find unideal. Like, it was not necessarily uncommon to find a standard world with, say, I don't have any of them in front of me right this second, so I can't give you a fully accurate number here. Let's see, I could have sworn I saved a variant. Here we are. Checking. 8 to 12 moons was not uncommon, which is not ideal for a standard world. Hell, 8 to 12 moons is not ideal for a gas giant. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Basil, doesn't Jupiter and Saturn have like hundreds of moons, like technically speaking? Yeah, no, yes. Technically, if you classify any orbital debris as a moon, like they have, like if I remember correctly, it's been a long while. One of them, the one with the most moons, has like 8 major moons, and even some of those major moons aren't exceptionally large. There's like 4 large moons, 8 debatably large moons, and the other like 100 or so are small, non-circular planetesimals. So one of the things we did in our generator with the new weighting system is make it so moons will be generated around gas giants as a possibility of a planetesimal field, which represents all those hundreds of moons in orbit of a gas giant that aren't full-on moons, but we still give them a possibility to get like 8 or so main moons. I'd have to check my new weight chart. I want it to be around 10, possible, to be honest, but I've still been tweaking the new chart to get it to do what I want, so let me double check it. Because we might as well fix it if it's not set how I want. Let's see. Yeah, okay, we do have it set so it's possible to get 10. 10 main moons that are classified as dwarf planets to a degree on the scale generator chart as moons. It's possible to get a maximum of 10. And then the rest, of course, if you rolled again, for instance, complex ring system twice, you get planetoid belt, which represents all those hundreds of lesser moons, basically. It's also able to get a ring system, which of course is, well, a nice fancy looking ring system. But I'm considering weighting the ring system to be slightly different, because currently it's, so most gas giants, basically all gas giants, if you want to be technical, have basically, not all in the galaxy, I mean in your soul system, have like ring systems, but they're very small. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time. I'm more of a broader space astronomy studier. More so, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did study your system, but my study was mostly of the galaxy and galaxies more so than your solar system. But I did study your solar system, so It's just I didn't really focus on your solar system. Anyway, if I remember correctly, every gas giant in your solar system has a ring, but they're super faint and some of them barely exist or something like that. Anyway, so still, at least in the new weight chart, I'm pretty sure that rings are too common around gas giants. A little bit. A little bit. I think maybe too common in general, even around everything, because I've given everything the possibility of getting a ring system. Same with the old broken moons. Think about just getting rid of broken moons. Thinking. Not sure. Got them from a different chart. Long time ago. Think about getting rid of that. Possibly. Anyway, just stuff like that. It's a lot of thinking about these kind of things. Weight charts, percentage chances. Now, I'm not the best at math. Not the best at math. So, I couldn't. So, I could give you the percentage on a dice roll, for the most part. I can give you the percentage on a dice roll, be it a d20 or a d10 mainly. I mean, it's been a long time since I've looked at the percentages involving d6s. I mean, d10s, d100s, and d20s are easy. For instance, a d10 is every single one is 10%. A d20 is every single number is 5%, obviously, and a d100 is every one is 1%. Simple enough. But I can't easily, off the top of my head, without bringing up charts and calculators, easily determine the percentage of, well, if you use a d6 to get to this chart and then a d10, what's the percentage chance if you add them all together? So it's really much, and I don't feel like doing that much math, to be honest, especially for something that's really feel-wise. So it's very much, because I'm not here trying to be scientifically accurate, you know? So it's very much feel. How common is this thing on this chart list, given all the modifiers? Modify it to see whether it works better, test it, feel if it works, modify it, test it, feel if it works, until we get to something that feels right for system generation. It's a lot of that. So basically, it's figuring out these numbers till they're right. I've also been working on item lists. Finally. Just working on them, but they're slow process, item lists. I mean, I say that, it really depends on the item being generated. Guns are easy. Vehicles are more time consuming, because I like making sure I have the math involved in them. I mean, I like having the math proper. When I say math, I mean like costs, speed. There's a lot more math involved in starting a vehicle than there is in starting a gun or a sword. There's a lot more math involved, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. And starships, too. Technically, starships have more math than vehicles. Well, it depends on the vehicle. But there's more math involved in it. Same with, like, it's a process. All this is, it's a process of work that slowly gets done. Feels like it very slowly gets done at times, but it gets done. Anyway. Also, always, still, continuously on the look out for new rules, systems that I'm missing, gaps in the rules, stuff like that. So, yes, back to the generator. So, basically, also renaming planet classes that I dislike. Trying to figure out planet generation percentages is annoying to get it to feel right. Like I said, it's just going to be a lot of testing. Certain bits I feel about removing, but if I remove them, I have to shift percentages around so they still work. and I need ways to generate certain effects, and just a lot of stuff. So that's what we work on. I say we, I mean, here at our little headquarters. Anyway, so slowly but surely, other than that, what else was there? Oh yeah, vehicles. Been statting those. More of them, that is. Just trying to get. Because I think I've been over this. It's easy to put numbers for vehicles on a table. That's easy. Accurately, slightly harder. Pricing them takes time. So, it's just a lot of that. Um, Working on a lot of systems. Lots of systems. Hmm. Yeah. So, let's see. I also want to work on some other random generators. I mean, we technically, like, if we're being loose, for being as loose as possible, we have a technically infinite random generator using the chart interpretation list that we use for the solar bot. Technically gives us random generation of theoretically anything, but it involves a lot of interpretation. I mean, I could make subcharts, but I want very specific random generators that are a little bit more directed in regards to certain aspects like corporations and so forth. Also, a long while back, I was talking about codes and so forth for data storage, basically, loosely based on the Traveler codes. Help with data storage, but they also help with random generation. I'm thinking about maybe working on some sort of variant of that for more complex things. For instance, I've been over this before with the Traveler system generator. I don't I don't like. And the world generator, I love it in theory, but it's not clear. I've been over that before. It's not clear at all, which makes making world maps annoying. And it's not a sense of it's not clear in a I mean, I have the books from Traveler that it's just simply not explained well how to the terminology is poor. It does not explain like how continents work, really, at least from what I can see. So, yeah. And just things like that. And well, like I said, the world wise, I mean, they're the way they do their stuff is so much different than the way we do our stuff. I mean, in a sense of the way their world is built, in the sense of like the populations. I've been over this before. The populations in Traveler are exceptionally ridiculously low. Ridiculously low. A system's been inhabited for over a century. What's its population? 100,000. What? A couple million. What? What is this? That no. 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 A world should have a minimum of 10 billion people. I say minimum, but like, of course, can have a minimum of 0 people. I mean, if you have something that's been colonized for 1,000 years or even a few hundred years, I mean, your Elysia, your Elysia went from what was the let's get the accurate chart out here. Here we are. Here we are. So, 7 billion people in 200 years, right? So, not only are we talking about open space, free land, etc., on these worlds and advanced technology, and they have like no people on these worlds. It's mind boggling. It's anyway. So, yeah, around here, we say that the average pop of a world is about 10 billion. 10 billion. That's that's for the average world. Now, given that, there are of course ecumenopolises, capital worlds. You can put a lot more people on one world. You can put like 1 trillion people on a world. It's not that hard. Really, the only max. I mean, you can sustainably even do it. It is theoretically sustainable. The only I mean, people complain that it's not, but it is if you do it right. But like the only problem you face for world population is really heating. Like people with their technology and so forth give off, and energy requirements give off heat. And this heating will heat up a world to a point in which it's not ideal, even with advanced technologies. So usually the limit is how much heat a world can handle. However, even then, we're talking like trillion or more. So, like sustainably 1 trillion. So, like point being 10 billion is not necessarily a lot. Anyway, especially well, if you build your world right. Point being, we have higher populations. Traveler is like only the highest population worlds have space elevators. Around here, we're like give every world 5 space elevators. Like actual space infrastructure is not uncommon. In Traveler, apparently it's super uncommon. It's strangely uncommon space infrastructure for people who have apparently easy access to starships, relatively speaking. So, it's a bit weird. But point being, the generators they use don't really work for us, statistics wise, when it's. Let's open the traveling book real fast. One moment. Here we are. So it looks like, if I don't accidentally scroll too far, here we are. Make sure I'm reading this right. Five. The average would be 5, not billion. 2d6 minus 2 is an average of 7.5, so an average of 5.5. So let's be generous and round up and say 6. Okay, let's be generous, round up and say 6 would be the average of 2d6 minus 2. We can actually, let's be actually completely average, not average, accurate. 2d6, we'll put it in an auto calculator. Not plus 2, minus 2. No, the average is not even 5.5. The average is exactly 5. So, with an average being 5, that would put the average world population in Traveler at the hundreds of thousands. Actually put it at the hundreds of thousands. Unless there's some step I'm missing in the traveler book. Is there some step I'm missing? Because all it says in the population section is no modifiers. 2d6 minus 2. And that equates to, in their book, hundreds of thousands. The average population of a world is hundreds of thousands. It's it's weird. Hello and welcome. Yes, the Empire are protectors of the galaxy. I'm just going off on one of my rants about the population capacity average of worlds in the traveler setting. But yeah, point being, with our average of 10 billion, it's it's harder to use their generators in any meaningful way, especially when everything of theirs is based around these exceptionally low numbers. The robots for Coalition are fine. They're fine. They're fine. The robots for the Coalition, no, sure they hate people and any biologicals really, but they're fine. Let's see. But yeah, like the infrastructure on Traveler Worlds and the populations and just everything about them is just not ideal for anything, which involves, well, not being able to rely on any statistics for our custom charts, really. So basically, it's finding numbers that work but range from all the way bottom to the top of 0 to, well, making charts is hard. In short, making charts is hard because there's lots of thinking and math involved in statistics and probability. So, yeah, that's what we've been working on. Also, slight tweaks to the nation running for players, as some players may know or may not know. We've tweaked some of the nation running rules. Sort of. I mean, more so, there's now a simplified variant of them. Mostly, sort of. Sort of. It's the way it's run for AI, not AI, but like NPC nations and quick calculations, which is convert lots of things just into dollars. I say dollars, I mean credit units, basically, monetary units, as opposed to. No, it's not. Um, as opposed to full on certain resources, just simplifying it a bit to be dollars upkeep. Because it's how it's run for AI. I say AI, but whenever I say that, I do mean like non-player factions. Makes keeping track of things just a little bit easier. And that kind of thing, really. One thing I've talked about starships, like starfighters versus fighter jets, boats versus starships. One thing I want to just mass out, honestly. I want to very quickly mass out missiles, ground-based missile launchers, and see how much. I mean, I say I want, implying I don't already have the stats. I do. I just haven't compared them to Starship Hulls, I'll be honest. Which I kind of just want to do right now. I say, but like, let's be honest, it's like 2 seconds. It is actually actively 2 seconds. Here is how simple it is. So a 2,000-pound bomb does about 10d20 damage, depending on the variety of the 2,000-pound bomb. There's different varieties of 2,000-pound bombs, but let's be generous and say it's a good variety, so that's going to be about 10d20, right? Okay, so now that we know it's 10d20, crazily enough, we just input that into the little chart behind me, which we can do. See, there's that little dice roller right behind me. 10d20 gives you an average of 105. So what we're seeing is your average missile. Okay, so now what we do, now that we have that number, is let's go over to our items catalog for Galactic Requiem. Click the vehicle section, scroll down to the starship section, which should have its own section. I mean, it is its own section, but it's not listed, you know? There's no little thing I can click on to quickly get to it. And then we do a little checking. So assuming this missile's not armor piercing or with any other special thing, it's just a good 2,000-pound bomb equivalent missile. We're looking at almost half damage, given that the average is 105. We're looking at almost half damage of that getting to a frigate class vessel, also known as a maximum of 250 meters in length also. Because with it has a DR of 60, so 105 minus 60 is almost half of the damage. A little bit less, but you know. It would hurt a destroyer, but not do much, because a destroyer has a DR of 80, and you're looking at minimal damage to a cruiser, and basically no damage to a battle cruiser, assuming we're not using some form of armor piercing or special type of thing. So you're going to need bigger bombs or specialized bombs to take on a battlecruiser. Which we have, of course. Starships have their own weapons, which have equivalents that I luckily automatically have listed in the Starship weapons list. For instance, the heavy non-nuclear anti-ship missile used by starships does about 275 damage on average, or 10d10 times 5, or 50d10, or 25d20. They are all roughly the same and roughly equate to, loosely speaking, well, I believe we use the times 5 variant, but it basically equates to 50 minimum 275 average and 500 maximum damage. But with an average, we'll go with the average, so 275, so you're getting about 175 damage left over. Even to a battleship, which has about 120 damage reduction, assuming it's not using specialized armor, you're looking at 160 damage per missile. This is, of course, not counting nuclear missiles and heavier variant weapons, which of course do significantly more damage. Of course, nuclear weapons do, well, it depends on whether they're fission weapons or fusion weapons, but on average, the average damage is going to be about 1,000 to 2,000 for a fission weapon, and a fusion weapon averages about 2,100 to 2,500 or so. Which I mean, given that a nuke basically vaporizes anything in the detonation radius, but given the fact that we still have to stat these things, because there's nothing in Galactic Requiem that is so simply, if it's, well, that's not entirely true. Nova bombs exist. Well, that's still not entirely true. Technically, I do have the static damage for a Nova bomb somewhere. Here we are. The average damage dealt to something in the radius of a Nova bomb is at minimum 6,300. Minimum. So, like minimum yield average damage. Meaning technically, the shittiest Nova weapon, a ship could survive. It is possible. Now that ship's going to be having a time, but it could theoretically survive the least powerful Nova weapon. While the average of, say, I mean, any non-starship, which have the benefits of energy shields and a lot of other things, is going to be not have a good time getting hit by a nuke, basically. A nuke is a nuke. There's no ground-based thing short of a very dedicated bunker that's going to survive even 1,000 immediate damage. Maybe a super heavy siege mech might take 1,000 damage. It's going to be dead though. I mean, it's going to be on the verge of death. Basically, its systems are all going to fail, but there's no way it's going to take 2,000 damage. So basically, there's nothing a nuke won't destroy, for the most part, short of a starship, you know? Short of the ridiculous construction of a starship or a bunker or something like that. There's nothing a nuke's not going to instantly vaporize that's within the initial blast radius. Which is how a nuke should be. There's no basic building that has enough health to survive. Well, that's not entirely true. If you make a building out of starship-grade material, it is theoretically possible that it might withstand if you make it out of starship-grade material. But at that point, we're talking about making a building basically out of a bunker. You know? We're talking about making a building that's the equivalent to a hardened anti-nuclear bunker deep underground, you know? Which is basically what a starship is. I mean, starship isn't deep underground, but health-wise, I mean, even then, if you hit a starship with a nuke, let's be honest, a starship's health is divided into 10 segments. So, even though a starship's health, not counting shields and armor, what is the average? We have the average somewhere. This is why we have everything listed here, luckily. Here we are. So a battleship on average has 37,500 health, meaning any segment, any one of the 10 or so segments of a starship has 3,750 health, meaning basically you're going to take out segments of a battleship. Not counting the armor, but the armor additional is like, what's the average armor of a battleship? Let's pop over to our item catalog, because it's all listed here. So the average hull and shield health is 150, not HP, that's then times by a multiplier. So 150 times 37.5. Meaning, technically, once you get through that shield and any ridiculous amount of heavy armor plating, you will, after you get through those, which are usually going to average a maximum, give or take, of about 11,000. Then nukes will start affecting systems, technically speaking. Point being, capital class vessels are no joke. I mean, they're 1 to 2.5 kilometers long and armored with basically space grade metals all throughout, with extra redundant systems and all that. I believe the average total is, well, we know what the average total is, technically speaking. We just went over it. It's 37,500 in total, and that is taking into account the armor and shields. But that does mean on average, it could be hit by 20 nukes. I mean, don't get me wrong, well, 18.75 average rolls of a fission device. Fusion does slightly more, but point being, it's not going to be happy even after a few of those. So it's not like they're invulnerable. You just got to hit them a few times. And again, they do put out the output of several nukes, even without using nuclear weapons. I mean, 60 1,000 millimeter equivalent cannons. You know, the average rough, give or take, output of the average Starship heavy weapon. Let me actually can get you the exacts there too. Crazily, I've done all the math on all of these. I don't have a problem. So 13d20 is the average of a basic cannon, and 25d20 is the average of a heavy cannon. So 13 and then 25. 13 and 25. Here we are. So the average of the light cannons, I say light, but I mean like standard ship-to-ship anti-battleship cannons, is roughly equivalent to the output of a 500 millimeter cannon. Of course, the cannon itself might not be 500 millimeters, but it's roughly the equivalent of getting hit by a 500 millimeter cannon. While the output of the heavy cannons, being 25d20, is about the equivalent of a 1 meter cannon or a 1000 millimeter cannon. So, you know, talking heavy weapons. And even then, like, so we're talking 60 500 millimeter cannons or 30 1000 millimeter cannons. So, you know, like the output eventually gets up there to the point in which it's roughly equating to a nuke. Less area, of course, far less area, but raw damage output every few seconds, of course. It gets there. And stuff like that, just lots of math. So that's a lot of what we work on. Let's see here. Yes, the system. The good old system. sector. Why don't we use the generator once? Let's generate whatever's right here manually. Let's see whether the generator fails. Well, let's generate and then see what we get before we place it, of course. We're not insane. Put on data sheet. Interact with our data sheet. Head to the bottom of our data sheet. Copy this from our data sheet. The reason we're copying that is just for formatting purposes. That way we can go like this. And not have to type out all the, at least the first 6 numbers, manually. Okay, let us generate a star system manually. Give it a test. Random generator, random star, not starship, star system. Here we are. Well, we're off to a terrible start. Sure. We've generated a multiple system. It has 4 stars. Multiple system with 4 stars. Now, I did use a new way of doing multiple systems. Now, I'm not sure I've ever wished to actually bother using this. It's an option that's available, basically, which is determining orbital distance of the any objects in a system with multiple stars. It doesn't have to be a multiple system, even just binary. So we list our generator as single, binary, trinary, and multiple. Multiple going 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then technically open cluster and globular cluster if you want to be technical, but in short, we can generate anything with more than 1 star. We can generate the orbits of those stars. Anyway, we're not going to do that here, right? This month. Well, I kind of want to. But it's for. We'll go back to it. We can always go back to that step, technically speaking. Well, it depends on whether we're using advanced generation or not. Advanced generation actually cares about where the orbits are. Non-advanced generation does not care about where the orbits are. Let's do it fancily. Slowly and fancily. Okay. Here we go. Very close. In terms of version subpairs, integrate a multiple. I need different dice for that. Okay. Oh, that's terrible. I mean, it's fine, but it's terrible. So we got very close. And the subpair. D12. Oh no. That's terrible. Not really. I mean, it's the standard. It's the standard expected. I say that's terrible like it's not. Basically, they're all real close to each other. All four stars are real close to each other. In fact, okay. They're all basically in the system core, basically. Well, what is that number? 0.5. Each point is 0.1. Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll actually note these numbers, because we can. Assuming I open the right thing here. These ones are... What was their number? .4 AU. Those ones at 0.4 AU. That one's at 0.5 AU. Well, that one's at 0. That's at 0.4 AU and 0.5 AU. Make sure I did that right. Subpairs. Settings to determine the distance between the subpairs and solitary secondary subpairs. No. Okay. So now we roll this. A D12. $700 AU. Okay. So it's not the standard variant, and I don't think we have a generator ability to generate the standard variant. Let's fix that, actually. Create a multiple, use the two list below. Is a I'll have to work on that a different time. Let's see. I have to do math for that. No idea. No, not ideal for me to sit here doing math on that. Let's generate these star classes. System objects. Here we are. This is the fun part. And this is a system of 4 stars, so let's see. We have a main sequence, and a special giant. An S-class. We'll note the S-class right now because that's easiest. Main sequence, S. A main sequence, and an exotic. Ooh, let's generate the exotic because it's easy to do. That is a variable star. Cool. Blank class variable. We have to also generate the variable type. Okay. So basically generating 3 main sequence stars. Three main sequence stars. We need the dice for that. So let's grab those, do a little roll. We have an A class. Next, we have to do this 3 times, so. Ooh, we actually rolled an O class. And lastly, we get a hell of a system, this one. F-class variable. As an F-class variable, that means it shifts into, at least using the way we do this easily, it shifts between F to, what's the rule? Down 1 stellar class, but up 1 size. So it goes to a G-class giant. Okay, I know it's not scientifically accurate, but it's the easiest way to do it without doing so much annoying stuff. So, hell of a system. Now we need to figure out how many objects are in that system. I mean, like normal objects, not star-like objects. For that, we roll this. I feel like I should weight these differently. Oh no, let's use the fancy version. Let's use the fancy version. Because we can. Okay. The answer to the first number is 0. Oh, I need another dice. Six. Inner 6, outer. 1. So we're going to need 7 slots. Seven objects in orbit. Now let's place those objects. Let's do this the new way. Make sure we grab the right dice. Just because I want to test the weight of the other chart. Jovian, terrestrial. Asteroid field. Dwarf planet. Asteroid field. Jovian. And lastly, and that is a right in time for an icy planetesimal field. And it's in the outer even, too. Let's hope we play... No, we did not spell planetesimal correctly, unfortunate. There we are. Okay, so now we have a system that's not complete yet, as we need to generate the types and all that, so that's what we're going to do. Start at the top, starting with the Jovian. Step 1. Gas or ice? Answer, ice. So, let's rename that. Ice Giant. And since we already have the, we're in the Jovian section, might as well roll that again. Gas or ice? Oh, that dice is on its side somehow. Actually, because there's a wire there, but, you know, let's roll again. Ice. Let's double check the rules. The fancy rules. For fun. No, we'll keep it this way. We're not going to go with the super fancy rules. That would be annoying. Maybe? Let's find out. What rules would they dare impose upon me? Let's find out. Oh. No, that the rules say it wouldn't change. Neat. Okay, cool. Next step. I guess we will use the fancy chart. Why not? Well, for several reasons, actually. Let's generate some more. As we're doing the gas giants, we might as well, since we're so used to the chart, continue. Wow. Actually, sure. I mean, statistically unlikely. They both have. Well, let's find out. Okay. We need to roll these. I see a failure in the chart. I see a very big failure in the chart now that I think about it. Yeah, that's not actually ideal. Half a second. Mm-hmm. Sorry, editing a chart. Okay. They both have one moon. We continue ever onward. That's not even entirely true. One has one moon. The other has three moons. One moon and three moons. One moon and three moons. Let's note these. One moon, three moons. What's next on the gas giant chart? I rolled that. Both those rolled nothing. Oh yes, we need to roll this. Both of them have ring systems. Okay. Neat. That should cover our Jovians. Time to move on to the easy ones. We have two asteroid fields, which is actually going to be super easy to generate. Super easy. Ooh. The first one has a dwarf planet. In the asteroid field. Insane. The other one doesn't. Easily enough. Now let's generate that dwarf planet. Nope. Try not to throw our dice. Nothing special about that dwarf planet. Now we roll for specials. Near constant heavy cloud cover. Okay. Now let's roll on that terrestrial world. What information do we have on this thing? Yeah. No satellites. No specials. Okay. And finally, the icy planetesimal field. I'm going to need d4s for this one. Five dwarf planets. And maximum 10 10 small objects, 5 dwarf planets. Okay. Now, what kind of terrestrial world is this? And what kind of dwarf planet is it? The first answer is terrain biased world, and the second answer is ocean. Uh, an ocean moon. Well, it's not a moon, it's just a small planet. Okay. And lastly, are there any steps we're missing? Planet, orbiting objects, technically terrain bias, there's no sub-role on atmospherics or specialty terrain. I mean, theoretically, we could check, and it is an option. We're not going to, I think we're going to call it about here. But it is an option to theoretically roll every sub-moon and object to see exactly what kind of object they are. For instance, any of these moons could be different varieties of moons and all that. There's different modifiers you can apply to be relatively accurate, or ones you don't have to apply to be more fun. It really depends on whether you want accuracy or fun. Anyway, we have a system. This is the basics of a system. It's technically enough to put it in the location. It's a multiple system, so we need to pick one star, type that is, and I'm going to pick S, because I rarely get to place S-class stars. And, well, nope, we actually placed an S-class star before, didn't we? Yeah, we had a rare S-class. Then we'll place an O-class, because one of the stars in here is an O-class. And yeah, it'll be part of this little place. It's good enough to be, yeah. I actually kind of want to rearrange one little bit of this. One second. Okay, there we go. Suppose it's not visible, is it? There we are. Basically, all I did was change where the AU distance betweens are. I put them in between the stars so I know the distance between the stars, crazily enough. And we have a system. A bit of a slow process without a 2-button generator, but it works. And I hate it less than the previous weight chart. I hate it less. So that's good. Yes, good. We'll go with that. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. We're going to call it there. As usual, I've been your host, Casimir Basilius, Imperial Lord, and ideally, next time, on Friday, we will be rolling dice for our mercenary. Ideally. That's the plan anyway. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully nothing comes up. Anyway, as always, I indeed hope that you, yes you, have had a wonderful day. And thank you for stopping by.